Welcome to the Well Seasoned Librarian Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Jones. This is Season 14, Episode 20. Today, I'm talking with Brenda Kusler, who is a lifelong Californian with a deep-rooted passion for gardening and community. Growing up in a family farm in San Jose, she developed a love for nature and a strong sense of responsibility to others. This led her to a career in genetic research where she perused answers with the same determination as a dog chasing a bone. Her interest in organic gardening blossomed in high school, and it's been a constant in her life ever since. In 2010, Brenda co-founded Fertile GroundWorks, a nonprofit dedicated to teaching people how to grow healthy food and sharing it with the community. Through their programs, they've empowered thousands of individuals to become more self-sufficient and contribute to a more sustainable future. I'm now going to take you to my conversation with Brenda Kusler of Fertile GroundWorks. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Dean Jones. Today we're talking with Brenda Kusler, the Executive Director of Fertile GroundWorks. Brenda, thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, we wanted to ask, you, for people who aren't familiar with you, where are you from and where do you live now?
So I currently reside in Livermore, and I was born in San Jose and pretty much grew up in the Bay Area with a brief stint to go to school in Eastern Washington. But
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Where were you at in Eastern Washington? I used to live up there.
Pullman.
I went to Pullman a lot. I lived near there in Lewiston and Clarkston.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yep. And it's, some of the steepest wheat farming in the world that goes on in Pullman and in the Palouse.
Well, yeah, because for people who aren't aware, Pullman just stops and then it's farmland.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
It just stops and wheat.
Oh. And it's lots and lots of wheat and lentils, and yeah, it was an eye opener for me because that was my first introduction to big acreage farming. Where as far as you could see, yeah, and getting to know the farmers, and I met a lot of really smart people who really taught me to watch the weather and kind of know when it was the right time to harvest, especially something of that massive of a scale.
Oh, yeah.
But, my auntie is also a wheat farmer, but when we went to visit her, we just hung out with the kids near the farmhouse. But she is now leasing her farm out to a fellow who is trying to bring back the older varieties of wheat, which is kind of really cool. And so every fall, and every spring, Casey and I, my husband, likes to bake bread. So she'll send us new varieties, 5-10 pounds of unground wheat, and say, here, try this. Let me know what you guys think of this.
That is awesome. I love that. I used to grow my own wheat, and I have my own wheat grinder. And
Yeah,
it's wonderful to do that. It's really lovely.
it is. Hopefully yours grinds finer than ours. We have an old kind of, you can do it by hand or you can plug it in wheat grinder, and yeah, sometimes it's a bit coarse.
I was lucky. I was awarded with a mock mill by the company for doing the podcast and helping them, kind of get the word out about them. And they gave me a beautiful, exceedingly expensive one that's huge. I can grind it quite a bit, and it gets so fine. It gets like I could grind it to a really fine powder if I wanted to.
Yeah, but who wants to grind it that fine? But
Nobody. I guess if you want to make corn flour, cornstarch, I don't know, maybe, but I don't know.
yeah. Oh man. But yeah, but so growing up, that's I was born in San Jose, and back then it was kind of an agricultural, a lot of cherry trees, a lot of fruit trees out there. And
Yeah.
that's part of my remembrance of growing up in an ag place, is just going into the cherry orchards and building forts. And luckily he was a very permissive farmer. He never
That's really sweet.
off. He just asked us to fill them back in when we got done. So
That's lovely. What are some of your memories of? Did you get a chance to garden with the family and do anything like that?
we did. And I guess technically I'm at the edge of the baby boomers, and but that meant that most of our parents had grown up post World War II, some of them in the Depression. So everybody had a little bit of something growing in their backyards, and we would just share it. I mean, how many zucchini can one person eat or one family eat? And that's one of my memories is like sitting in our cherry tree and picking cherries for Grandma Bergman, then taking them next door, and then magically cherry pies would show up on our porch, which was my mother worked while I was a kid. And so that was always a wonderful treat, because she didn't have time to make cherry pies, but Grandma Bergman did. So we would get cherry pies back off of our cherry trees. And my father grew up in Eastern Washington, so he was really excited about our Mediterranean climate down here and putting in citrus trees. So we
Yeah.
had lemons and limes, and we were pretty close to the Yagami nursery where they were some of the pioneers in grafting citrus trees. And so we had citrus trees that, one half was a lemon and one half was a lime, and there was an orange and a grapefruit. And so that's how I grew up. And yeah. And then way back in high school, long ago and far away, I got introduced to the Rodell gardening and Mother Earth News. And so that's where I started getting into organic gardening. And my father, who hated mowing lawns, was really happy to just let me turn the whole back lawn into a vegetable garden. So,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, and that was good. And I wish I had paid more attention when I was helping my grandma can stuff up in Washington, because I had to relearn it all as an adult. Should have asked more questions as a kid.
Yeah, you
So,
said that you're on the edge of the baby boomer like me. I think they call us Generation Jones.
oh no, okay. Are
That's
you?
the name they call it. Yeah, which is good for me because my name is Jones. So, but
Did you just make that up, Dean?
no, that's a true thing. We're because I'm kind of in between Generation X and the baby boomers. So
Yeah,
they call that Generation Jones.
yeah. So,
So
okay.
because we're always keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh,
That's where it comes from.
R.
Yeah. But growing up with parents that they're either their parents were influenced by the Depression, usually did they instill anything as far as like saving food or being frugal or just an idea of the importance of food?
Very much so. We did not waste anything. You always made sure you cleaned your plate and you were thankful for the food that was on your plate.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, you know, both of my parents worked from very young ages. And so they kind of had that whole sensation of you need what you need. And, if you've got a roof over your head, food in your belly, clothes on your back, it's time to start sharing. And to that end, we had a lot of foster kids that moved in with us and stayed with us. And that kind of really instilled in me just how lucky I was to have the parents that I had. Um, visiting with them about, the family lives that they led. Uh, it was not pretty. It's amazing how poorly some parents treat their children. And yeah. And so my folks always taught us to share. If you've got more than you need, then you've got too much. So share it. And um yeah, a few of them stayed with my parents long after I left, just to make sure that everybody graduated from high school. Education was
Yeah.
a very important thing for my parents. And then the ones that wanted to go on for college, my parents were like, you're welcome to stay as long as you are enrolled in school, trying to work a little bit, and you don't have to leave until you've got some money in the bank and enough to cover first and last on your wherever you decide you want to be. And so it's that many of them still write my mom. My mom is 89 going on 90 now, and she still gets letters and phone calls from the kids that we grew up with. And so
Wow.
yeah, I
That's
think
a wonderful legacy.
that my parents are great people.
They sound like it.
Yeah. So, and both of them pretty avid readers. So
I
I
love that.
on the spot. And so, yeah. And they weren't picky about what we read. It was like, oh, you're reading a comic book. That's good. That's
Yeah.
as reading, a classic Mark Twain or whatever. But as long as you were reading, you were golden in their eyes. So they figured you could learn from just about anything. So I think it was probably my folks that got me the organic gardening books, because by then I was still planting things among my mom's rose bushes and lettuces and whatnot. But I back then, Silent Spring had just come out, and
Oh yeah, that was pretty big.
yeah, and just the effect. I like really love animals, and so just seeing and hearing about extinctions and endangered species, it was like, what are we doing? What we're messing it up. We're given this chance to have this paradise and be a part of it, and we're messing it up. And
Well, I
so,
think just for people who are not aware, Silent Spring was a
oh,
really big book that impacted people because it talked about the dangers of the spraying and a lot of the chemicals going into gardening.
yeah, into gardening and the secondary effects on the if you want to call it natural world, which gardening should be a part of. We should all be able to, you know, garden with nature and not against it.
Yeah,
I think anyway, there's just, for every pest, there's something that eats it. So all you have to do is make your garden a good place for the predator of your pest to be living too. And they'll kind of keep each other in balance. So
absolutely. I mean, you can't really enjoy your vegetables if you have cancer from the spray you're putting on everything.
yeah, yeah, it doesn't help. Um, I had a friend from India who said she was confused by how Americans wanted the perfect fruit, with no blemish. And she said, I always felt better eating something that had a little hole in it, because then I knew I was sharing it with the world, and I knew that
Yeah,
something else had eaten it and lived, so that I
that
would, so,
that's actually really logical. It makes really perfect sense.
so, but that's kind of how I got into organic gardening. And then when I moved to Livermore, Cupertino, San Jose has kind of clayey soil, but nothing compared to the Pleasanton loam that we have here, which I think you can actually throw pots with. Um,
Yeah.
but so my garden wasn't doing very well here. And I was reading in the local newspaper about this organization, Fertile GroundWorks. And and they taught people how to garden. And that's how I ended up volunteering with Fertile GroundWorks back in 2012. So that's how I met the founder of the garden, Bruce Campbell. And he tells me the tale of how it actually started when the Asbury Church, who actually owns the land that we farm on, um, they rebuilt their fellowship hall and they put a commercial kitchen in for Open Art Kitchen, which prepared hot meals
Oh
for
wow,
the
that's really big.
yeah, for anybody who wanted it. But at that point, before the fellowship hall, they only had their kitchen in Pleasanton, which is the next town over, and they would package it and bring it in. And Asbury was hosting different homeless services, bringing in dentists and doctors and whatnot for people to come. So on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and Open Art Kitchen would bring hot meals. So when Asbury rebuilt their fellowship hall, they put a commercial kitchen in so that Open Heart Kitchen could just start preparing the meals there, serving them there, and not have to do all that transportation and packaging. And the pastor at the time, Chuck Johnstone, um, said, I don't know anything about a tractor, and I don't know the difference between a potato and a tomato plant, but I'll bet you there's somebody out here who does. And Bruce Campbell, who actually founded the garden, had just retired from the labs, was a lifelong gardener, um, and went up to Chuck and said, I'm your man. And so Bruce, his friend Mark Burnell, who's a botany professor at UOP, and Miriam Yaxall and a few of the ladies from the church choir started Fertile GroundWorks with like 6 beds, 5 or 6 beds. And when I first started volunteering there, we would just load things in a wheelbarrow and in the harvest crates and take them over to the kitchen, and Open Our Kitchen would just take it straight out of the crates and start cooking it. So it was a very tight loop there. And then we would come back and pick up the kitchen scraps and compost those and then put them back out into the garden. So since then we've grown a bit. And I think it was 2018 that I had retired from Stanford, and Bruce threw out his back and he said, "You want to be executive director?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I've never done that before. I'll try it." And so I've kind of tried to fill his big shoes. He is a wonderful, wonderful man and a great teacher. But they started it with the mission of teach, grow, give. And for Bruce, it was very important that we teach people how to grow food for themselves, not just grow food, but that's how we grow all the food, is from those lessons. And in 2012, he and I started the Sustainable School Garden Program, where we go out to schools. We were getting requests from educators. I have this garden on my campus. Nobody's using it. Can you help me fix it up and make it functional again? So that's how we'd start one school at a time. And now we're at 23 schools that we help with irrigation, garden design. We give them seeds, seedlings, whatever they ask for. Schools are broke, and we try to just support it because we want the next generation to know where their food is coming from. Get their hands dirty, get involved in that food web of, nope, that's a good bug. That's maybe not a good bug, but we don't need to squish it because we don't really know what maybe, it's a primary decomposer. It has its role. So
Now, you must receive lots of feedback from the young people and then the instructors. What kind of feedback have you seen, or have you ever had anybody come back years later and say you influenced their life?
So we have had kids come out. So they, in elementary school, they played in one of the school gardens, and then in high school, they're required to do their community service hours.
Right.
So they remember us, so they come and volunteer with us. And it's kind of nice because now we actually have kids that, I met when they were in like 5th grade. They're in college now, and they're coming back during their school breaks and volunteering their time because they got bit by the bug, the gardening bug. And they may not be in a place right now where they have a garden of their own, but they need their dirt fixed. So they come out and help us out. And, they remember lessons of, like, pulling their first carrot and being amazed that carrots grow underground, and that not all tomatoes are red. There are yellow ones and orange ones and green ones and purple ones. And so, yeah, it's really kind of fun. One of these kids, there's a variety of orange cherry tomatoes that are really good, highly recommended by everyone under the age of 40. But they're super sweet, right? And so we just call them garden candy because the kids will just start picking them and eating them while they're there. And so he's munching away on them, and he goes, I'm like, "Oh, so you like tomatoes?" He goes, "No, I hate tomatoes." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm not going to tell him that he's eating a tomato right now. And so he goes, "What are these?" And I'm like, "It's an orange tomato." And he's like, "No." And I was like, but he had
It's
learned,
all in the perception, how they perceive it.
yeah, that he did like tomatoes after all. So, but you got to admit, nothing better than a fresh garden grown tomato fresh off the vine. So,
That's true.
but don't, yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, what are some of the challenges and rewards that you've seen leading a nonprofit organization? And what have some of the most significant obstacles you faced?
So, the rewards far outweigh any of the challenges. And the biggest challenge is, I'll be honest, is funding. It's
Yeah.
PPP coming in so that you can keep growing. And I think that's true for every nonprofit. And, we run with a real minimal paid staff. We're totally reliant on volunteers, coming when they say they're going to come. And, we're blessed because we have like this core of 50 volunteers that for years now, it's like they're the Tuesday regulars or the Wednesday regulars, and they come out during their shift, and they come rain or shine. People are hungry 365 days a year, so we grow food year round, and they'll be out there in freezing weather and wet weather harvesting. And we might not get much garden work done after we harvest, but we get the harvest out to the pantries, and that's an important thing. So for us anyway. So the rewards for me are just meeting this just myriad of really good people, generous of heart and spirit, and they just give whatever they can give. Some people can't work in the garden, so they help us with our websites and our social media and getting flyers out and reaching out to the general community and making connections for us. And yeah.
You talked about community. What are some of the memorable stories you have or anecdotes about the impact Fertile GroundWorks has had on the community?
It's it's been, sometimes it makes me just want to cry when I meet people at stores that, it doesn't make me want to cry. It 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 makes me happy to see that they have survived and thrived, but they tell me that as a kid they were dependent on the food pantry
Yeah.
for meals and their food, and they're you know they just say thanks. And so I try to make a point of going back and telling all the volunteers, hey, I met this person. They wanted me to share their gratitude with you for helping them make it through their lives. And, they are a productive adult now who doesn't twitch too bad. And they're, they're gardening at their own place now. And so, and they're reaching back out and giving back to their communities too. So
Yeah.
one of the big things out at the garden is that our volunteers come from all walks of life. We have clients from Open Art Kitchen come out and volunteer in the garden because they're appreciative of the fresh veg that they were enjoying. And they help us by, making suggestions on, what they would like to see come in too. But more than that, they get to meet other people in the community, other people in the community who maybe haven't had a lot of personal experience with people who are unhoused. And
Yeah.
they I've seen a lot of connections get made where they're working side by side. Somebody needs help in their garden at home, or a landscaper, or somebody maybe to take care of an older relative, and that connection was made. They've come to trust each other, and the person who needs the help reaches out to the person who's unhoused, and now the unhoused person has a job. We've helped a few of them get into apartments. And, once you've got an apartment and you've got an address where you can apply for jobs, in your own closet and shower. And yeah, so they've kind of left the garden and gone on and started new jobs and new careers. And to me, that is full circle. That's the way human beings should interact, and not be afraid to reach out to people and lend a hand wherever you can. So
What services exactly does Fertile GroundWorks offer? Because I know you do programs where you have gardens, but what is the whole focus of Fertile Grounds?
really,
Fertile GroundWorks, sorry.
yeah, there you go. Our main mission is to help improve food security in our community, and that 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 is our big service, is that we teach and then we grow a lot of food and then we give it away. So if you think about it, we have, I think, 15,000 square feet right now in production, and we grow a lot of different vegetables. And so we don't have a big monoculture. All of our beds are in companion plants and whatnot. But our
Right.
goal is to get as much of a variety of fresh food out to our community and to our neighbors, who need help making ends meet, and who maybe don't have access to
Yeah.
food. And so we want to make sure that they do, and not just, canned goods and box dried goods, which fill your belly, but boy, it sure is nice to see, little kids' faces light up, and even the moms, coming out with giant tomatoes and going, oh, and you could, what are you going to make with that? And things like here in the States, we consider it a weed. It's called purslane,
Yeah.
but yeah, and it's really yummy, and all around the rest of the world, people eat it in everything as a green salad addition. They saute it, and um, we get so many volunteers that come out and go, "Oh, should I weed this?" And we're like, "No, we send that in," you
Yeah.
know, and we can bring in apple boxes of it, and they're gone in minutes. It's because people are like, you can't find it in the grocery stores, and
Yeah.
so we get lots of recipes for purslane from Afghanistan, Eastern Europe, South America. This is how we do it, and it's like, okay, great. So for all you vegetarians out there, it's one of the highest sources of omega-3 fatty acid, better than salmon. So, okay,
Nice.
all the salmon. So,
Just watch. That'll be the next new superfood now.
yeah, yeah. Somebody did say they saw it at a farmer's market this
Oh,
year.
wow. Yeah, that's cool.
It is. It's great. And when Bruce shared all the health benefits with me, and so we were planting it. We planted 2 beds of it out in the big garden, and I brought one of the seedlings home, and my husband was like, we just spent 2 years eradicating that from our backyard. You are not really going to purposely plant that. And I was like, okay, we'll start it in a pot, and. Yeah, it thrives in our garden once again, and it it's actually a pretty good cover crop, a good living mulch. Doesn't suck up a lot of water. It's shallow rooted, so all your veggies that are deep rooted, it doesn't compete with them. But be warned, it does make about 10,000 seeds per plant. So if you let it
Oh,
garden, it's going to be there. You're never, yeah, it will take 2 years to eradicate it. So
so
take pesto with.
oh,
So
pesto.
yeah, it's
That's really good. I like
pesto.
that.
Yeah,
A healthy pesto. That would be really cool.
yeah, and you can do like half and half with basil if you like the
Nice.
basil flavor, but it will make your basil crop go much farther. So anyway,
Very nice. Now, what are some of the long-term goals for Fertile GroundWorks? What do you want to see the organization do in the next 5 to 10 years?
so what we're working on now. So like I say, right now we're growing about, I think this year we're going to break 30,000 pounds of food that we share back to our community on give or take a third of an acre of cultivated land. And so we lease 2.5 acres, and we're probably using about an acre if you count, greenhouses and cultivated lands. So we're planning our next expansions. And this last year, we surveyed, we got permission from our food pantry partners to interview their clients and say, what are you missing? Because they do come from all around the world. And, we grow produce that we're used to growing. And what are you missing? And so we got things like mango and papaya and avocado and a lot of plants that are just a little bit out of our range, but we're going to try them. We spent a lot of time trying to find varieties that would grow with a little bit cooler winter than,
Yeah.
so that we're in the process right now. We've got the irrigation in, the compost is down, and we'll be planting out a lot of these plants, loquats, kumquats, just things that people are missing from their home. Custard apples. I never Sapodilla is its other name, but it's in South America, and um, it looks kind of like a little hand grenade. The fruit of it, it's all bumpy.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
It's really good. Kind of has a lot of seeds, but it's supposed to be really good. I've never eaten one, but that was one of the requests we got. Kiwis, which we can grow here. So we're building a food forest in this expansion with these kind of tropical, subtropical trees interplanted with the smaller varieties of other plants. And so we're going to have to take care of them during the winter because a lot of them will only tolerate a few cold days, but we'll see
Yeah.
what goes. And And then we're also doing kind of a focus on native edibles and trying to bring back kind of, this is more for the kids, just so that they can come out and get a feel for what the land might have looked like before the missions moved in, and what might have been the food crops back then. So a lot of berries that are native to our area, oak trees. Who knew there's actually a native hickory, California hickory?
I did not know that.
I did not know that either. That was one of the things I learned.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're trying to put those plants out. Some of them get quite large, so we're kind of trying to figure out how to fit them into our kind of linear, row patterns. But I think they might just take over, and it might not be a bad thing to have. Right now, the garden, most of it is in the sun. It is a great vegetable garden for sun.
Yeah.
But this year and last year, we had a lot of sun scald just with these, 100+ days coming in May and June. And so we were thinking, maybe scattering some of these trees around in the main garden wouldn't be such a bad thing to provide a little bit of shade to some of the crops that need light but could tolerate some more shade and maybe thrive a little bit better. I think I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of intercropping, and the pepper plants this year that are doing the best are actually planted where we have, 6-foot high tomato plants shading them part of the day. They're not getting near the sun scald. The fruit are larger. The pepper plants are actually doing better than the ones that are just in straight up pepper beds planted with smaller herbs that aren't shading them as much. So
Oh,
yeah, I'm learning anyway.
I love that. Now, I want to ask, what role do you believe Fertile GroundWorks will play in shaping, the community in the future?
I'm kind of hoping that all the kids that get to be exposed to school gardens. This year, our goal is to have every K-8 kid in Livermore School District and they're in a garden at least once a month. I'm not sure we're going to achieve it, but that's our goal. It's a lofty goal. It might take us 2 years, but just to have those people feeling empowered enough to grow their own food and being willing to share it with their immediate neighbors. Just kind of harkening back to my childhood where everybody shared whatever they had. If you have 18 zucchinis and you only need 3, you kind of go doorbell ditch your neighbors and leave zucchinis on their doorsteps.
Oh, yeah. My mom had me do that when I was young. I knew that.
Yeah, yeah. And I did not know this. Somebody from the Midwest, one of our volunteers said, "Oh, didn't you know there's a National Squash Day?" And I'm
I
like,
didn't know that either.
and apparently on those days, it doesn't matter how hot it is outside, you make sure you roll up your window when you go into the market, because if you come out, people are going to be putting squash in the back seat of your car. And I'm like, no. And she's like, yeah, and I mean, it sounded like she grew up in a smaller town in the Midwest, but where you would leave your car windows rolled down because it was hot, and but yeah, so I thought that was great. And like you say, reminding me of being a kid. It's like, oh yeah, we have 20 of these. Go, quick, give these to the neighbors, Make sure Guy and Helen on the corner get some. They don't have a garden yet. So
Now, I want to ask also, I'm going to include the links, of course, to your website in the bio. Can people look here to come to events that you have? You have gardening events, and can you touch on that briefly? And also, can people ask about volunteering?
yep. So the website does have a volunteer tab. So if you just click on that, it doesn't let you know that your inquiry got submitted, but just hit submit. And Lori, who's our volunteer coordinator, and I will both get copies of it. And Lori is much better at replying quickly than I am. So and she'll send out a roster of the open shifts and a volunteer release form, because got to keep the lawyers happy. And then for our events, we do, like just this last Friday, we did a kind of a garden tasting where we had tomatoes are starting to come on now. And so we tasted, I think, 10 varieties of tomatoes. And then we have some really good gourmand kind of almost level cooks amongst our midst. And they just cook some wonderful dishes, trying to highlight what you could do with your garden produce that's coming up right now. And so people were amazed. They were like, we thought this was a tasting, and it was a full-blown dinner. And I think our next one is September 20th. So if people are interested, contact us, and you'll have to give us your email, because that's how we do it. We just send out a bulk email that says, sign up now, here's the link. And I don't think that link is live, but we try to do classes also, garden-based classes. And our last one was, I hate to admit, but was this spring. It was a tree grafting class.
Oh,
And
wow, nice.
how to make your own fruit salad trees, which is a great way. If you have, an apple tree, you can graft a different variety of apple on it. If you have a cherry tree, or a peach tree, you can shove get an apricot branch going, and it kind of spreads your fruit harvest out over the whole summer. So yeah, the California rare fruit growers, there's a couple of their members that are really involved volunteers, and they came out and they hosted the grafting class. They taught it because they're better at it than I am. I did have one of my grafts survive. So now I have
Very
an
nice.
apple variety on my apple tree. So, but
Very
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
What kind of apple?
it's a German variety, Spitzen something. It's a long, cold weather one, almost a cider apple, but
Ooh.
it was very good, but it was slow to mature. And
Oh.
I'm hopeful we get about 500 chill hours. Most of the trees in our orchard, that's my cutoff, is 500-600 hour chill hours to set fruit. So yeah, it's a CIMIS, I think, is CIMIS website. If anybody wants to know your chill hours, they do a cumulative chill hour by your zip code.
I'll include that in the links as well.
Yeah, I'll double check that, and if I'm wrong, I'll shoot you an email that goes wrong link. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, and so, but that way, when you go out and are hunting for what will grow in my area, you can look for varieties that match your chill hours, and maybe not the citrus here in Livermore is a little bit dodgy. In backyards, it grows really well because you're protected. Out in the big farm, we're right at the edge of the city limits, and there's not a lot of houses right around us.
Yeah.
So it gets a lot colder there, probably about 10 degrees cooler there than it does in my backyard. So we actually have to protect our citrus trees out there during the winter. So
yeah, it gets so hot in the summer we forget how cold it gets in the winter time. It gets pretty chilly. Brenda, I want to thank you for being on the podcast today. We're going to give people information how they can look up Fertile GroundWorks. Thank you for being on the podcast. I really wish your organization continual success, but I don't think you need it. You got a really good thing going there.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And thanks again for letting me share Fertile GroundWorks with the wider community that you enjoy, because you're doing good work out there, my friend. So
thank you. You're doing great work, and I think we need more of this in America. I think you're making big changes.
That was my conversation with Brenda Kusler of Fertile GroundWorks. We'll have links to the Fertile GroundWorks website in the bio. Please come back next week when we have more interviews with food writers, food producers, chefs, and more. Until then, I'll see you at the library.
Thank you.